and welcome to episode 2. In this episode we're going to be putting in the tower. We're going to be resizing it, recolouring it and positioning it just over there on that sort of shoreline. So I'll just dig up Bridge now and try and find the file. There we go. So this is actually a tower I photographed at Laycock Abbey in Wiltshire. I'm going to leave it as it is, and the reason being is I'm going to edit the colours and tones and everything to suit the picture it's going into. Otherwise I'll be doing it blind, which is not a good idea. So just open it up. And then what we're going to do is cut it out. So we're going to cut it out using the pen tool. Now a lot of people don't like the pen tool because it can be a bit tricky. But the only way to get used to it is really just to use it. What we need to do is just dab. So you just put an anchor point there and then put one there. And you literally just dab in where you want the anchor points to be. There's no dragging as such yet. So we just dab in. So we've got these details on the outside, but I'm not bothered about them just yet. So just, if you're following along, just dab to under that statue. So I think that's I think it's one of these heads. So just, and then we want to go outside of everything, and I'll tell you why in a little while. And then we'll just join the wall back up, and then just keep dabbing again on your way back down. It's just a rough cut out for the moment. If you go wrong, just press undo. By the way, I'm using spacebar. When you press spacebar, it puts a little hand tool up, and you can scrub around the picture. If you're wondering how I'm doing that. As you're going around the base, just probably leave a little bit of foliage in the bottom. And also select the white direction selection tool and just draw around some anchor points, and it'll allow you just to move those anchor points without affecting any others. So like I say, just leave a bit of foliage at the bottom, just so when you put it in the picture it's just anchored to the ground. Looks a bit more realistic. There we have it. So here, look, I've got just a little bit wide, so I'm just going to bring him in a little bit. There. So once you're happy, press Control and then Enter, and that turns it into a selection. And as we did before, we just want to press V and drag it across, and then we don't need that anymore. We can get rid of that. Because we made a rough selection using the pen tool, it is typical to get what's called a fringe around the item or object that you're selecting. So in this case we have got a blue fringe around the tower, and to get rid of that we need to put on the marching ants again. We need to make that selection again. So it's just hit Command and press the layer, or Control and hit the layer if you're using a Windows system, and then go to Select, Modify, Contract, and you want to contract that selection by 1 pixel. But in this case it wasn't enough, I needed to do it by 2, so I did the process again. Then we need to erase the blue pixels outside of the selection, and to do that we need to invert the selection, otherwise we'd be erasing the tower and not the pixels, not the blue pixels. So it's very important that you invert the selection, and then just simply use the erase tool and go around the outside edge of your item. In this case it is the tower, so just go around the outside wall of the object and just erase any unnecessary pixels that you don't want. So I'm just cleaning it up now, just going around making sure there's no unnecessary blue tints or anything. And then what we need to do is we need to resize it. So having that layer still selected, use Command T or Control T on Windows and just bring up those anchor points, so we can now resize it to fit the image. Again, depending on which version of Photoshop you're using, you may need to use Shift to drag it out proportionately or not. What we'll do is we'll just resize it and then just set it on this little shore here, just bringing it down, just making sure it fits and it suits the rest of the frame. It's nice really, because if you see behind it, I've purposely left that path in from the mountains, which looks like it's a bit of a little path to the tower itself, so that's worked out quite well. So there we go. I think that's about right. I'm just going to lower it a little bit just to make sure. There, I'm quite happy with that. We now need to get rid of the original sky from the top of this tower. We can do that using a great tool called the background erase tool that can be found under the eraser tool set. I find it very useful, especially for jobs like this. If we was to use the pen tool to intricately cut out these areas, then it would be quite a laborious task, but this does it on pixel color. If you just look at the top here at the tool settings, we need to make sure that we've got sampling once selected, which is the middle option, discontagious, and also I've got it set to a tolerance of 31 to begin with. And then literally just press on a pixel you want to get rid of, but keep it pressed, don't let go, because you've loaded your brush then and you've told Photoshop these are the colours I want to get rid of. So if you now drag across, it will distinguish between the the stone looking colours, the greys and shades of grey, and it will say I'm going to leave those be because I want to get rid of just this lilac-y blue colour. So Photoshop can easily distinguish between the two, as long as you keep your button pressed or your pen nib on the screen. And there we go, easy as that. So what I'm going to do now is just up my tolerance a little bit and just get rid of some of these artifacts that it sometimes leaves behind. Or lower it, whichever you prefer, just to get rid of just keep going with it, keep until all the blue has disappeared and it looks how you want it to look. So we've got no hard edges or funny little lines, just make sure that it's all gone. And then if you are having a bit of difficulty, just use the normal erase tool. That's how you get rid of skies or anything that's within intricate areas. Just use the background erase tool. So it looks like we've got a bit of a lean on, so I'm just gonna set it straight. That's better. So what I'm going to do now is just get a mask again on that layer and just with a feathered brush, slightly feathered, I'm just going to delete just a bit, just the bottom area, because I want it to feel like it's part of the picture. So I'm just getting rid of this sort of rough edge at the bottom, so it looks like the foliage is built over or grown over the rock, so it just looks a little bit more realistic. So there's some sort of hedge here or bush, so I'm just going to bring that back and just let it grow over that. Looks like it's growing around the base of the building. Just experiment what's around here. No, it's probably not going to work, so just paint white again and bring it back. Now that we've created some unevenness around the base of the tower, we've brought back some original foliage. We're going to create a new layer and paint in some of our own grass using a brush tool. I'll just select a new layer and call this grass, just to keep on top of things. And then from my brush menu, I'm just going to choose a grass brush that I created. I'll show you how I created the brush in another tutorial because it's a bit in depth. I actually create it in another program. I create it in Illustrator and then put it into the library where I can then access it in Photoshop, and then I define it as a brush and then do some sort of shape dynamics on it and how it uses colour and shape to create grass. So I'm just going to, before I start, it's best to use colours that are already in your image. So just click on the foreground and then just with the eyedropper tool just select a green, and then for the background sort of a lighter green. So we've got two shades there from this image, and then I'm just going to paint in just a bit of grass. There we have it, just a little bit of foliage around the base. Try and do it at different heights as well, just so it gives it a bit of randomness. There we have it. So we've got the tower in. We just need to make it look like it's part of the scene now, because as you can see it's quite bright. So we just need to darken that down a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten those two together. So the grass and the tower are one now, one layer. I'm just going to keep that. Call it Outpost, because it is the last outpost. That's the name of the picture. So we'll just do a levels adjustment on it and just bring that down. Now the light is going to be coming in, sort of coming from that direction and coming down as well. I'm just going to darken, because this side of the tower is going to be in shadow. So what I want to do is I want to get a brush and paint black. And make sure it's feathered, which it is, that's okay. And then just paint back some light. So what I've done really is I've just used that adjustment layer to darken the whole tower, and I'm masking out that effect. So I'm going to bring back the original brightness of the tower on that right hand side, just using the mask like we did with the mountains. I masked out the sky. I'm masking out that effect on just that right side. So now we've got the lights and darks sorted. What I want to do now is make it look like it was made from local stone, because at the minute it doesn't look quite right. So I'm just going to go to hue saturation, and just using this hand tool here, I just want to bring the colour out a little bit. I'll make sure I've clipped it to that layer. So I'm just going to bring the existing colours out just by dragging to the right. That's it, just saturating that tower a little bit, and then I'm just going to bring this slider over until I can see a match there. We're starting to get that reddish tint through now. Probably about there, and just darken it down a little bit. That's pretty good, that's okay. So it's just got this reddish orangish tinge, which is the same as the rocks around. They've all got this kind of orangey tint to them, so it looks like it might be sort of local stone. I'm just going to lower the opacity just a little bit of that, just to, yeah. So that's before and that's after. I'm quite pleased with that. So now what we need to do is we're going to create the little outbuilding, and we'll do that in the next episode.